There is a crack in everything, and that is how the light gets in. Imagine that light breaking through your darkness, illuminating the fragments of a life you thought were shattered beyond repair. Today, I want to speak about the God who does not see our brokenness as the end, but as the canvas of his masterpiece. Life has a way of breaking us. Dreams fail, relationships crumble, and hearts grow weary. At times, it feels as if the pieces are irreparable. Yet it is precisely in these moments of despair that God's restorative power shines the brightest. For he does not waste our pain, he redeems it. First, we must understand that brokenness is not a curse, but a stage for transformation. Just as a seed must crack open to sprout, our souls must sometimes fracture before we can fully grow. Each scar, each tear, each moment of loss can become a doorway to deeper faith and wisdom. Second, hope is not passive. It is a choice to trust that God can rebuild what we think is lost. When the world says, "It's over," God whispers, "Watch this." That is the hope that keeps our hearts alive amidst despair. Third, our pain has purpose. The chapters of our brokenness often carry the lessons that shape our character. Sometimes God allows the storm not to harm us, but to teach us how to stand stronger, wiser, and more compassionate. Fourth, faith is our bridge from broken to beautiful. Restoration begins not when circumstances change, but when we choose to place our trust in God's unfailing love. When we surrender control, he replaces our fear with courage, our doubt with clarity, and our despair with joy. Fifth, we are called to participate in our own restoration. Prayer, reflection, forgiveness, and intentional growth are ways we align ourselves with God's transformative work. Restoration is not magic, it is partnership with the divine artist who sees the masterpiece even in fragments. Finally, our testimony matters. When we allow God to restore what was lost, our story becomes a beacon of hope for others. The once broken heart, the lost dream, the shattered life, all become living proof that God takes what is broken and makes it not just whole, but beautiful. So if you are here today feeling broken, remember this: no fragment is too small, no mistake too great, no life too shattered. God specializes in turning our brokenness into brilliance. He restores what's lost, and in doing so, he reveals his glory through our lives. Let us walk forward not in fear of our past, but in faith toward the beauty God is crafting in us. The cracks in our lives are not failures. They are windows through which his light shines brightest. God specializes in taking what is broken and turning it into something beautiful. Life often leaves us in pieces. Dreams fail, relationships crumble, health declines, or trust is shattered. We look at our circumstances and feel powerless, thinking that once something is lost or broken, it is gone forever. But God sees differently. He sees potential where we see despair. He sees the fragments of our lives as raw materials for a masterpiece. Each broken piece is not wasted, it is part of a plan that we may not yet understand. Even when we feel unworthy or undeserving, God does not look at our failures as final. He looks at our hearts, our willingness to surrender, and our capacity to trust him, and he works quietly to restore what was lost. Restoration is not always instant. Sometimes it comes slowly in ways that challenge our patience and faith. God uses small steps, gentle guidance, and even discomfort to reshape our lives. Like a potter shaping clay, he molds the broken parts with precision, removing what is harmful, adding what is necessary, and bringing forth a form that is stronger, wiser, and more resilient than before. What we once considered ruined can become a testimony of strength and grace. What we once doubted could be transformed into a source of inspiration for others. The beauty of divine restoration is that it does not depend on perfection. God does not require flawless circumstances or flawless people to restore. He works with what we give him, even if it is our weakness, our pain, or our confusion. Every tear we shed, every regret we carry, every scar we bear can become part of a story that points to his love and power. The brokenness that isolates us socially, emotionally, or spiritually can become the bridge that connects us more deeply with him and with others. It teaches humility, compassion, patience, and understanding. Through restoration, God reveals that loss is never the final word and that our value is not measured by what we have, but by what he can create from what seems destroyed. Hope is the light that shines when everything around us seems dark. It is the quiet voice inside that says, "This is not the end," even when circumstances scream the opposite. In times of loss, failure, or betrayal, it is natural to feel hopeless, to believe that nothing will ever change, and that life will never feel whole again. But hope is not wishful thinking or blind optimism. It is a choice to trust that something greater is at work beyond what our eyes can see. It is a decision to believe that even in the brokenness, restoration is possible, and that God has not abandoned us. When we embrace hope, we are refusing to let despair dictate the course of our lives. We are declaring that our current pain does not define our future. Hope acts as a shield against the weight of suffering. It gives us the strength to take one step at a time, even when the path is unclear. It reminds us that loss is temporary, and that what feels like a dead end can become a new beginning. Human sociology shows us that people who hold on to hope are more resilient, more willing to seek solutions, and more able to connect with others even in difficult times. Hope transforms isolation into community because when we believe things can improve, we reach out, we support, and we inspire. It is contagious, lifting not only our own spirits, but also those of the people around us. Hope also changes the way we see our struggles. Instead of seeing pain as meaningless, it allows us to view hardship as a teacher, a guide, and sometimes a necessary preparation for greater growth. When we hold on to hope, we are cooperating with God's timing rather than forcing our own, trusting that He can turn setbacks into opportunities, mistakes into lessons, and loss into abundance. It empowers us to act with courage, to make decisions that align with faith rather than fear, and to persevere even when the journey seems long. In moments of despair, hope whispers that our story is not finished. It assures us that God's plans are greater than our disappointments and that every ending carries the seed of a new beginning. When we cling to hope, we are choosing life over despair, possibility over limitation, and light over darkness. Pain is not a random event, it carries meaning, even when it is hard to see. Every hardship, every heartbreak, every moment of loss has a lesson hidden within it. Life often feels unfair, and it is natural to question why suffering exists, why dreams are delayed, or why relationships fail. Yet, human experience shows that those who endure hardship with faith and reflection often develop qualities that would not emerge in comfort or ease. Pain shapes character, teaches empathy, and builds resilience. It forces us to confront our limitations, to reevaluate priorities, and to seek solutions beyond our own understanding. What feels like destruction can actually be preparation for something greater. The purpose in pain lies in its ability to refine us. Just as fire purifies gold, challenges purify our hearts and minds. Pain strips away illusions, pride, and dependency on temporary comforts. It shows us who we truly are, what we value, and where we need to grow. Human sociology tells us that communities and relationships are often strengthened through shared struggles. Pain connects us to others who have walked similar paths, fostering compassion, patience, and understanding. It teaches us to support one another, to listen deeply, and to celebrate resilience when we witness it in those around us. Pain also opens the door to spiritual growth. When life is easy, faith can become passive and shallow. Hardship awakens a deeper reliance on God, a trust that transcends immediate circumstances. It challenges us to seek guidance, to pray, and to embrace hope even when everything seems lost. It teaches us that restoration is not accidental. It requires learning from our experiences, allowing God to work through our struggles, and cooperating with His timing. Every trial carries an opportunity to become wiser, stronger, and more compassionate. Finally, pain gives our lives depth and meaning. Without it, joy may feel shallow, achievements may feel hollow, and gratitude may go unnoticed. The scars we carry and the challenges we overcome tell a story of survival, perseverance, and divine purpose. They transform ordinary lives into testimonies that inspire others to endure, to hope, and to believe that even the darkest moments are not wasted. Faith over circumstance means choosing to trust in God even when everything around us seems to fall apart. Life often presents challenges that appear overwhelming. Loss of work, broken relationships, illness, or betrayal. It is easy to focus on what we see, to measure our worth by what is happening externally, and to let fear dictate our actions. Yet faith calls us to look beyond what is visible, to believe in the unseen, and to rely on God's promises instead of our own understanding. Human sociology shows that people who anchor themselves in faith are more resilient, able to navigate uncertainty with hope, and capable of making choices that reflect long-term growth rather than short-term comfort. Faith is not denial of reality. It is recognition that reality is not the final authority over our lives. Faith over circumstance requires a shift in perspective. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" we begin to ask, "What is God teaching me in this moment?" When we trust God's plan, we no longer feel powerless. Even in pain, disappointment, or uncertainty, we understand that there is a purpose beyond our immediate perception. Faith allows us to act courageously when others retreat, to make decisions with integrity when compromise seems easier, and to persist when quitting feels natural. It strengthens our hearts, giving us endurance to face storms while keeping our eyes on the horizon of God's promises. Faith also influences how we interact with others. When we live by faith, we radiate calm and confidence even in adversity. We become examples for those around us, showing that life's circumstances do not have to define our behavior or mindset. Human society thrives when individuals choose faith over fear, because hope becomes contagious. Families, communities, and workplaces experience transformation when people respond to challenges with trust, patience, and determination rather than despair, anger, or resignation. Living by faith over circumstance also encourages perseverance. It teaches us to take small steps forward even when progress seems invisible. It reminds us that God's timing is perfect, even if our own is flawed. It allows us to release anxiety, resentment, and control, trusting that God can work miracles in situations that appear hopeless. Faith does not erase difficulty, but it equips us with strength, clarity, and courage to face each moment, knowing that what seems impossible to us is possible with God. Active participation in our own restoration means that while God has the power to heal and rebuild, we are invited to cooperate with Him. Restoration does not happen passively. It requires intentional steps, willingness, and openness. We cannot simply wait for life to improve without engaging with the process. God provides guidance, wisdom, and opportunities, but we must take action through prayer, reflection, forgiveness, and making choices that align with His will. Human sociology shows that people who actively engage in improving their lives, even in small ways, experience greater resilience, satisfaction, and purpose. Waiting without effort often leads to stagnation, but taking deliberate steps demonstrates faith in God's power while embracing our own responsibility. Active participation requires self-awareness. We must honestly examine our thoughts, emotions, and habits to identify areas that need change. This may involve letting go of grudges, seeking reconciliation, or breaking patterns that harm us. It means taking ownership of our part in past mistakes without self-condemnation and being willing to learn from them. Every effort we make, no matter how small, signals to God that we are ready for transformation. It shows that we are not merely asking for restoration but are committed to walking alongside Him as He works in our lives. Participation also involves resilience and persistence. Restoration is rarely instant. It often comes through a series of steps, trials, and learning experiences. By actively engaging in prayer, seeking guidance, learning new skills, or fostering healthy relationships, we align ourselves with God's plan and open doors for miracles to unfold. Human relationships and communities thrive when individuals take responsibility for their growth. Our efforts ripple outward, influencing and inspiring those around us. Those who demonstrate active participation in their healing often become beacons of hope, showing that restoration is a dynamic process requiring both divine grace and personal commitment. Finally, active participation transforms our perspective. Instead of seeing ourselves as passive victims of circumstance, we recognize our role as co-creators with God in shaping a renewed life. Each step we take builds momentum, develops courage, and deepens faith. We learn patience through the process, humility in recognizing our dependence on God, and gratitude as we witness change unfolding. Through engagement, we turn potential into reality, brokenness into beauty, and despair into hope, understanding that God's restoration works best when we meet His power with willingness and action. A testimony of triumph is the living proof that God can restore what was once lost or broken. When we allow God to work in our lives, our story becomes more than personal experience. It becomes a source of inspiration for others. People are drawn to authentic examples of resilience, hope, and faith. Human sociology shows that shared stories of overcoming adversity strengthen communities, build trust, and encourage others to persevere in their own struggles. When we share how God has restored, healed, or renewed our lives, we remind others that they are not alone and that restoration is possible even in the darkest circumstances. Our triumphs, no matter how small, carry significance. Recovering from loss, forgiving someone who hurt us, rebuilding a dream, or finding peace after chaos all become powerful testimonies. They demonstrate that God's power is greater than our pain, that His timing is perfect, and that His love never fails. A testimony is not just about celebrating the outcome. It is about acknowledging the process, the patience, the faith, and the courage required to walk through hardship. By sharing our journey, we show the value of perseverance, the importance of trust, and the reality of transformation that cannot be achieved by human effort alone. Testimonies of triumph also create hope for the next generation. When young people, peers, or colleagues witness someone overcoming seemingly impossible challenges, it expands their belief in what is possible. They see that mistakes, failures, and brokenness do not define a person. What defines us is how we rise, how we allow God to shape our lives, and how we choose to inspire others through our journey. It fosters a culture of encouragement and support where people are motivated to face challenges with courage rather than fear. Sharing our testimony strengthens our own faith. By reflecting on how far we have come, we recognize God's guidance, provision, and transformative power. It reminds us that even when circumstances were overwhelming, we were never truly alone. It deepens gratitude, reinforces humility, and encourages continual reliance on God for the future. Our lives become a living message that restoration is possible, beauty can emerge from brokenness, and hope can triumph over despair.